Hello, this is your virtual content specialist here with the 7th grade lesson for April 9th. This lesson and all other lessons can be found on TeachHub. As with every lesson on TeachHub, we provide for teachers the lesson title, the focus question, the learning objective, the standards, and the lesson objectives. Additionally, we provide guidance for using the resource, including instructional and technology guidance. Additionally, we provide guidance for using this resource, including instructional and technology guidance. Please keep in mind that this is day 2 of a 2-day lesson, and at the end of this lesson, it's important for students to summarize methods they use to find the area of a base of a prism when it is not a rectangle or triangle. Implementation guidance for each portion of the lesson, and note that this lesson in particular is day 2 of a 2-day lesson. At the end of the lesson, it's important for students to summarize methods that they use to find the area of a base of a prism when it is not a rectangle or triangle. We also provide guidance for summarizing, guidance for summarizing, guidance for assessment during instruction, guidance for assessment during instruction, and general methods of engaging with students with disabilities, and general methods for engaging with students with disabilities, and multilingual learners, So 7th graders are working in Unit 7, Angles, Triangles, and Prisms, Day 24, Decomposing Bases for Areas Part 2. How can we find the volume of a prism with a complicated base? The introduction is going to set up the activity for today's lesson because it asks students to write 3 things that they know about this figure. So students may say that the figure is made up of different type of rectangular figures and a pentagram if they're familiar with the name for that shape. A misconception that might be brought up during this portion of the activity is that the base of the figure is a rectangle, and that is not correct. And so if a student does bring it up, you want to ask them, how do you know it's a prism and what the base is in order to consider it a prism? Now we are in the exploratory activity where students are presented with the image from the previous slide, and now they are told that it's a house-shaped prism that was created by attaching a triangular prism on top of a rectangular prism. Question 1 asks, describe or draw the base of this prism and label its dimensions. Students should have finished discussing what the base is in the introduction, but if not, this is the place to make sure that they're drawing their base as this shape and that they're noticing that it is 11 inches tall and 6 inches wide. And they can further break it up into a triangle and a rectangle and say that this triangle has a height of 4 and the rectangular figure has a height of 7 inches. Let's not forget the units. Now that the shape of the base is established, we can answer number 2. What is the area of the base? Explain your reasoning. So we discussed, or the students discussed with their partners, that the shape is a pentagram that can be divided into a rectangle and a triangle. So now we're going to do the area of each of those shapes separately before we synthesize them together to get the total area between the combination of the two. So we know that we're going to multiply length times width for the rectangle, and that's going to be 6 times 7, and we get 42 square units. And that for the triangle, that's 1/2 base times height. And so that's going to be 1/2 times 4 times 6, which gets us 12 square units. And so we know that the total area of the base is going to be 42 plus 12, and that gets us 54 square units. Lastly, students are asked, what is the volume of the prism? And now that we know what the area of the base is, all we have to do is multiply by the height of the prism. So we're using the formula volume is equal to area of the base times height of the prism. So when students multiply, they're going to do 54 times 8, and we get the volume as 432 units cubed. This portion of the Explorer now is synthesizing what students have learned in this lesson and in the previous lesson. And so after students are done responding, you want to select previously identified students to share their answers for the different methods for calculating the area of a shape whose base is not a rectangle or triangle. If it's not brought up by students during this portion, you want to explain to them that the base of the figure can be either decomposed into rectangles and triangles or composed into a larger rectangle by adding 2 additional triangles. And then you can ask students how they use the area of the base to calculate the volume of the figure, which they did by doing area of the base multiplied by the height. And so you can support students with disabilities further during this portion by having students explain their strategy for calculating the volume of the prism and asking students to consider what is the same and what is the difference about each approach. And you want to draw students' attention to the different ways the figure was decomposed and highlight any use of mathematical language, including the words decompose, rectangle, triangle, trapezoid, so on and so forth. That way, these exchanges can strengthen students' mathematical language use and reasoning of prisms. And essentially, students are going to hopefully take down what they listen to and write it down in their summary. You can have students to proceed with the cool down. For additional practice, students can do IXL 7-A8.18 if they're on the lower end. Medium level students can do the practice problems from Open Up Resources, and high level students can do Engage New York's Grade 7 Module 6 Lesson 26 problem set. This resource, as with all of our resources in TeachHub, include resource citations. That way you can look at the materials we adapted for further support for digital learning. If you have any questions, please reach out to your virtual content specialist. Thank you.